guess you can start.
Hi. Okay. I'm Tom. This is Floris. So we're from Nodis Consulting. Let's start with a quick introduction, what or who Nodis Consulting is. Let's start with ourselves. I'm the guy on the left, obviously. Yeah, I've been with Nodis for about 6 years, but Nodis only exists actually 7 years. I've been working within the energy industry since then. I'm a civil engineer, well, a computer science engineer, and currently I'm active, just like Floris, at Elia, which I guess you will know, and in any case, by the end of this presentation, you should know. I'm from Ghent, so never studied here, but it's also a good university.
Hi everyone, so my name is Floris. 5 years experience roughly in the energy sector. I don't really have a title where I'm working now, so I just call myself business expert. What's in a name? I started here for 5 years. I did the energy master, so I was also at some point in this aula taking classes. Current project at Elia as well. I'm from Diest, which is also very cool. Maybe quick question to you, so we know who we have in front of us. Is it mainly students? PhD students? Okay, that's quite clear. Other academic involvements? No? All right, I'll hand it back to Tom.
All right, now Nodis. So what do we do? That's a fancy slide. We need to compete with Deloitte and stuff. So we focus really on digitization, as the title kind of hinted. We have two main sides of that. More at the strategy side is, okay, how do you digitize stuff? That's more on architecture, on solution design, high level. So we have some people working on that. And then on the right side, where most of our people are working, is really in implementation. That doesn't mean that we have programmers. We don't have any real technical people as such, but we have a lot of business analysis, also functional analysis. It's really making sure the developers can do their work. And also on the data science and analytics, we have a couple of people working on that, as it's everywhere, as you obviously know. And some of our profiles are more on the top part that manage the projects or programs to implement everything we suggested as of a strategy. It's a bit repeat, but the different profiles is really helping business, helping companies taking the right decisions in the digitization of their processes. We focus solely on the energy market, solely on Belgium, by the way. This way, we like to call ourselves experts. We really have a big focus on knowledge. We have to compete with the big consultancy firms, so we do that by making sure we know a bit more about them, and by going in a bit of a niche, and by focusing only on energy markets. We hope, or we claim to do that. That's about it. This gives you a bit of an overview, but it's another a bit boring slide. But it shows you that we're really focusing within Belgium, but also, of course, integrating in the European market. So where are we typically active? That might give you a better understanding. We're at the grid operators, so Elia, Fluvius, Sibelga, but also at the energy providers, like EDF Luminus, or balancing parties, like Next Kraftwerke, if you might know. Others are NGB, At the Watergroep as well, it's a bit outside really electricity market, but it's still a utility in Belgium. So especially if you look at smart metering, there are some similarities, but it's a bit less complex in a way. We'll see that in a bit, that in the electricity markets, you find a bit more complicated problems to solve. Any questions on that before we go to the real presentation? You can always find us on LinkedIn and stuff like that.
All right. For the setting the scene part, maybe just yeah, a quick test on how well you a quick test of your knowledge, let's say, just to see where you are. Anyone got a rough idea of the electrical energy consumption in Belgium? Order of magnitude? Any guess? Is it 10, 100,000 terawatt hours? Something else? It's roughly 80 terawatt hours for Belgium. Solar capacity installed? Any idea? Yeah, that's a good guess. It's like 11-ish gigawatts at the moment. Compared to peak load in Belgium, roughly. Yeah, it's a bit more, at 13-ish, I think, gigawatts. So that already gives an idea. It's quite interesting to see there's a huge amount of installed capacity compared to the peak load. Last question. Which party do you get your invoice from? Any idea? Is it the system operator, supplier? It's a sorry? Yeah, it's a supplier. Okay, enough about that. So setting the scene, I will quickly be stating the obvious. There's many figures like these ones you can find online. I just use it to set the scene again. I took two sources a bit closer to home, Elia on one side, Energyville on the other. So we all know the energy system is changing, maybe not as quickly as we would like, but it's changing nevertheless. Just yeah, the evolutions we see. It's Belgian numbers from the Elia blueprint, just to indicate the final energy demand. Primary energy consumption is expected to go down. Share of electrical energy is expected to go up. There will be a bit hydrogen in the mix as well. Share of fossil energy is expected to decrease. On the production side, it's also Belgian figures where it's really crazy if you think about the installed capacity, how it's really exploding, mainly because we are looking at intermittent energy sources like solar and wind. But it will provide quite some challenges looking at these figures. These are figures for Belgium. You could say same goes for roughly the whole of Europe. It's also something Europe has been pushing quite a lot with the sequence of energy packages or energy regulation related packages, where the focus was the last few years a lot on sustainability. Lately, the focus is a bit more on energy independence, energy security, with all the stuff that's happening with Russia, the United States. The focus is shifting a little bit, but I hope it can be a bit complementary. So if you're able to install and cope with huge amounts of renewable energy, we are also able to produce our own energy, and we will be less dependent on fossil fuel imports. The above is introducing a lot of challenges, as we already said a couple of times. For system operations, that's quite an obvious one, but not an easy one. We are moving to finer granularities. To give a very concrete example, earlier this month, or as of the start of this month, the day ahead wholesale market switched from 60-minute intervals to 15-minute intervals. We are faced with, our system operators are faced with steeper ramping rates, and yeah, more extreme behavior in general. Looking at market participation and facility point of view, it remains very important to have accessible and stable markets that incentivize, that provide a level playing field and incentivize the necessary investments as well. It's a bit on the development side. We need to create or facilitate a market where people are comfortable to do the necessary investments, to have the necessary production and flexible assets. And it's happening on different levels. On a high voltage level, we are interconnected across the whole of Europe, connecting different national markets across borders. And at the same time, we're looking at really local markets, trying to incentivize on household levels, so lower voltages, to incentivize and activate people and users, and to really have them being involved more, trying to get the flexibility on their side. That's something system operators are also really counting on. All of this is facilitated to some extent by different digitalizations, digital improvements, which we will really need to tackle all the different challenges. That's a bit what Tom and what the focus of what Tom and I will be talking about today. There's two digitalization waves, two chains of improvements, which are, we think at least, quite interesting, and which is also a field of expertise where a lot of our colleagues are working in, are working closely on at the different companies Tom already mentioned. The first wave will be all about how we went from a very passive end consumer on the lower voltage levels to a really the possibility at least to be really active, really involved in the different markets that are out there, also as a smaller grid user. Tom's digital wave will be more a bit more system operation point of view. Next slide, please. We'll often use this kind of setup to go through the different evolutions. So there's some evolutions more on the technological side, let's say, and there's some evolutions more on the market side. The start of my wave is the rollout of the digital meter, which is the start of a sequence of evolutions, which I will lead you through. It's a bit the combination of the digital meter and, on the system operator side, an advanced metering infrastructure. Yes, you can go the next slide. So in Flanders mostly, and also in Brussels, in the south of Belgium a bit less, they're working on the rollout of a digital meter. For Flanders, they intend to be at roughly 100% in 2029, I think, so it's quite well on the way. And what are we doing? We are moving from a world where, from system operator point of view, we get one measurement every year from all the different end users, to a situation where you have the possibility to get a measurement every 15 minutes, which is a huge change. The amount of data you generate and the amount of insights is really huge and useful, but also quite challenging, obviously. And the first step was on the Fluviuses and Oreses of the world to beef up their internal system. To their backend systems needs to be able to interact with the meters, get the data, send control transactions to the meters. So it's bidirectional. They usually join up with meter service provider, and all needs to work quite well. It's not going super smooth all the time. There's been a lot of hiccups on the Belgium DSO side, also for the next step actually. So yeah, basically we are able to interact with the meters. They're there. The data is there on system operator side. So now what? That's a bit the next step, and that's more on market side. So the DSO is responsible to handle the data, to roll out the meters. But then what? We want to use this data in the market as an end user. You want some insights. The suppliers need to know what's happening, what you're consuming, so they can send the right invoice. And that's a bit the next. That was a bit the next evolution on the more on the market side. So the creation of new supply platforms. Yes, perfect. What happens is, on one hand, we have more data, more control. That's interesting for both end users and the system operator. A very practical one is they don't need to send anymore someone physically to the place you live to register the actual measurement. That's all automated right now. Also, there's some other practical benefits. You don't need a separate meter if you need kind of budget meter for prepayment. It's more for social customers. They don't need to change your metering device if you switch from a total hour time of use to day-night time of use. And of course, the most important part, we have bidirectional data on a 15-minute basis. You can measure offtake injection separately, which is, for a lot of people with solar panels, not very nice. A lot of people in Belgium were, with solar panels, avoided the installation of the digital meter at home because it means that you can no longer have what we call net metering, or in Dutch, de terugdraaiende teller, which was a bit pain in the beep for suppliers and system operators, but very profitable for end users. That's okay. I need to speed up a bit, maybe. I wanted to say still, you also have insights now on peak load with smaller granularity. If you only have a measurement once a year, you have no idea what your peak load is. Now we can have these insights, and also for the system operator, they can bill you. They can introduce capacity tariffs to incentivize you in a different way. The next slide is then more towards towards the supply market, together with the introduction of the digital meter and the possibility to measure offtake and injection separately. There's different ways to interact on the market. There's different services available. Just to give an example, you could, if you want to, maybe not on Fluvius side, but at Ores, I think it's possible. You could have a contract with a supplier for offtake and another for injection. You could have a contract for, you could sell your production completely and be billed on your total consumption. So this kind of data is now separately available, and there's different services added on top or accordingly. You might have already heard of Atrias. That's the big supply platform built by the DSOs in Belgium. When it's in the media, it's usually not in a very positive way, because there were huge delays and cost overruns. So this digital transition, it's necessary, but but it's not always going very smoothly. Yeah, I'll go to the next part. One more. Yes. Okay. So the data the data is there. You have it available at home. Suppliers have access to it. What's now the next step? Up to now, or up to now in my storyline, solar PV was a big element with avoiding net metering and so on. But now with uptake of other, yeah, local assets, flexible assets like EVs, heat pumps, and so on, we can start doing some more interesting stuff from a local point of view. Um, we you have the data at home. You can start monitoring a bit better what's happening. You can optimize a bit better the use of your solar PV, the charging of your car. And that's where we see popping up a lot of companies trying to make a business case to set up energy management systems at home, and make a living off of it. That's also part of the digitalization track, and it's offering interesting services for you as a user at home, with also added benefits for the system operator in terms of behavior. Yeah, so this is a bit the illustration of that. So you have a way more granular data. You have a lot more insights, and yeah, that's something you probably have seen already a million of times. So you can do peak shaving, optimize your consumption a bit better. But I quickly want to go to the next step, because this is all still a bit on from a local point of view, but really the more interesting stuff starts to happen when you look a bit broader, when you also start making the link with the bigger markets, the wholesale market, when you start grouping different end users in one big pool and start playing with that. That's a lot more powerful. So that's where we enter into, sorry, that's where we enter into dynamic tariffs. You might have seen virtual power plants is something you might have heard already. The development of flexibility platforms, where you can have, as an end user, you can try to offer the little flexibility you have to be a part of the bigger next to the bigger players. You can now also make an offer in a way. On the next slide, this is a bit shown again all the different means you have today, or which are being unlocked, let's say, starting with the digital meter at the start. So today you can think at looking at your house. You can think about avoiding peaks to save on your capacity tariff that the DSOs have put in place. You can expose your 15-minute data to a supplier, so they can bill you in a very different way. They can make the link with the wholesale market, the price that's fluctuating every 15 minutes. And as soon as you're, to some extent, exposed to this, you have the incentive to also adapt your behavior or consumption throughout the day. Imbalance steering, that's more from a balancing perspective. You're not going to be a balance responsible party as an individual very quickly, but there's parties like bigger suppliers grouping a bit the behavior of all of you, their assets, and even before they get their invoice from Elia that they are unbalanced, they can try to influence a little bit they will ask you, dear grid user, can I maybe steer your battery, your heat pump, or whatever? So they can influence already in real time the load they are generating on the grid, and they can steer their balance, be it to be balanced or to be in imbalance on the good side of the scale. That's possible. And then balancing services, then we talk more about explicit balancing, when the system operator requires like activations to help them out. They suppliers or balancing service providers can also start looking at you as local users to help them out there, hopefully with some compensation for it. Yeah, and this is a bit the final slide, showing indeed that there's, on a household level, all of a sudden a lot of things you can do. You can become a lot more active in a lot of different ways. You can do it yourself, you can outsource it, get some compensation for it. Then we're looking at virtual power plants or aggregators or PSPs. There's a lot of names for sometimes with the same things. Yeah, and you can call it cross-market optimization to give it a fancy name. All the different elements you can optimize. And I think I'm at the end of my digital wave. Yeah, one more click, I think. Hey, we have the wave. So it's completed. Starting from the switch to a digital meter and then I try to guide you a bit through all the different changes on different market party sites to get where we are today. To be honest, it's still not off the charts. There's still a lot of room for improvement. The flexibility on household level is still quite limited, so it's still ongoing. We're getting there. Again, maybe not as quickly as we hoped to, but at least for Tom and myself, there's a lot of work still, so that's positive. And then it's the next. Yeah, unless there are maybe any questions, might be interesting. Yes. Vehicle vehicle to grid or vehicle to home. That's a good question. That's a quite detailed one for me, to be honest. I'm not sure where the bottleneck is today. Is it? Okay.
I think the bottleneck is mainly with the infrastructure of be able to charge, the chargers be able to communicate with the car. They were, I remember a couple of years ago, still working out the standards to make the communication right there and to make a standard way of communication, because we have all those brands, all these chargers. But yeah, it's just a battery, in the more from an AMS point of view. There's no real limitation for those. If you can make that asset available to those, let's say, those balancing parties, then technically you can use that for the flexibility services. But I think it's more in the technology where it's slowing down and being able to speak well with the car and each charger with each car, from my understanding.
I don't know about a lot of car models offering it today already. I think it's also quite limited on that side, and also some reluctance from car manufacturer point of view, I think also to have a lot more load on their batteries, also from a lot of EVs or from our company cars. And also in that regards, it's a very practical thing. I think that the company car is used for personal gain, let's say, and the battery that might deteriorate a lot faster, which affects the aftermarket value, all that kind of stuff. So You want to go? I'll start. Yeah, it's quite complex, and I think it's on a lot of different levels still. Some blockers. I think regulation is sometimes a bit slow, so it's not from for example the Krech in Belgium. They probably still have some homework to do to make sure that on a household level, when that all the necessary agreements or legal necessities between the different stakeholders are in order. There's some technical limitations, for example, on the Atrias platform. I think if today everybody would switch to using 15 minutes values in the market, I think I'm quite sure they will not be able to cope with it. So they're not making too much noise about, hey, everyone, you can switch today to 15 minutes. You can expose them to the market and do interesting stuff with it. If everybody with a digital meter would do it today, they will probably not be able to facilitate that.
It's very hard to do. You really need to contact your supplier. They need to, and they say, no, we're not going to do it. You can, you're allowed to ask for it, but they will block it off just to slow you down because they have so much trouble in processing all that data. The systems really having to process all that data are not quite there yet. And governments is again, they're a bit reluctant to reinvest in it because they say, but this time it will be better. They are actually reinvesting in it, but yeah. I think we've been braked a bit due to some issues with the ATS program altogether. I remember when I started working 2012, they were talking about it's coming. We also call it MIG 6. They're like, but this year it's then. It took another 10 years before it was really live. So I think that one broke a lot. And then I think also for the consumers, it's a bit the complexity of it all. It's a bit, you have all these different devices and you have a battery of that, or you put your solar panels yesterday and then there's all kind of parties that you can help and they claim to be an expert, but the prices are very different and you get lost as a consumer. There's just so much going on, and okay, for you guys, it will be fine if you're a bit technological schooled. You can make your headway for it, but for just the average consumer, it's just a big, I would say, drempel, hurdle to take, and so you don't really have that ease of use then, and that slows it down as well. One of the many. You had another one?
No, on the consumer side, indeed. I think we're a bit in our energy context, and we know what's happening, but that's not for everybody.
Another thing about data sharing. So, as my understanding, Fluvius owns all this digital meter data program, and they hold it. But I don't know if it's possible for other people to also third party.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah, you need to allow it then. So there's several ways to do that. You can, on those digital meters, you can plug in any device to actually read it themselves. So they have this port and there are a bit of devices.
I know that now aggregators do this either for the P1 port or they have to install all of the sensors. But my question is, since this data is already aggregated in the Fluvius cloud or at this cloud facility, can I digitally access it without having to go physically at each customer and connect?
On the Fluvius platform, I've worked at Fluvius, but it's been a while. But if I remember correctly, Fluvius has a main Fluvius platform you can log on to if you're the owner of the address where the meter is installed. And there is normally a port where you can allow third-party access to the data you have. So you should have a look there. Yeah, normally that exists, or at least Fluvius facilitates this. It's there already. I don't know if the specific party you need to expose it to will have on their side this agreement with Fluvius as well, because they also have to interact with Fluvius, but it could be that it's already possible.
That's then Fluvius and not Sibelga, by the way.
There's
that's
different parties in Belgium, different
another
point of
thing
views.
the issue here in Belgium then that it's a bit fragmented.
I want to add on, like indeed, if you test, you can load in your data, or for example, like Jabel, you can also use their system, but it gets the data from. So it's already there. I don't know how it works.
So some things work.
Already in time.
Another question before we go into the yes.
Yeah, just a quick question. Do you have any projects on reactive power support from these virtual power or from maybe or not?
But yeah, no.
We're not directly involved. I was worried there would be some more technical questions from the audience, but no.
Yeah.
Reactive power support, we're not directly involved. Of course, within Elia, there's
Yeah, in the system operation, I'll touch on it maybe, but yeah, here, yeah, in the consumer side.
Yeah, on the low voltage, no, not really.
Okay, so we have another way for you. It's looking more from a system operation point of view. So it's where we go from managing grids, more manual and reactive, to trying to do this proactively. It's actually a wave that's still ongoing a lot, but it's a bit different because the system operations have it all under, or most things under their control. So it's a bit easier to manage, and there are really many projects to support this wave. So here we start from local grid control. There's somebody monitoring some screens somewhere, and if there's a problem, they will get called or see something blink, Homer Simpson, push a button, try to resolve it, send somebody there, and hope everything works. Today, as Floris explained, it's all a bit more complex. It's not possible anymore. Good thing is, some of the bigger units, they send us planned outages, or also how much they will produce, the power central or any gas central, any bigger ones, they have to provide their plan on what power they will put on the grid when. Now, the biggest start in this is digital twin and doing grid simulations on the digital twin. Oh, sorry. I bet you know, but I'm just quickly going to go over how we look at this digital twin. So you have your physical system. Well, first here is relevant that we have a real-time digital twin. You get your live data and you see a digital reflection of it. This way you can monitor it and you can control it by doing actions. Sending somebody out, maybe even automatically changing a switch, whatever. You take decisions to act upon your physical system. Still quite basic. Where it becomes interesting is where we are using predictive twins, where we're going to use some simulated data to say, okay, under this scenario, let's see what happens with my system. And can I take some smart decisions, smart actions to avoid certain problems that came out of my simulation? Of course, this is not one simulation that's happening. There's actually, in parallel, always multiple scenarios that you manage. I'm going to bring it a bit to the grid operation side, where you see all the different types of simulations or grid simulations that are happening at the same time. In real time, there's somebody monitoring the grid, if we look at Elia, all the time. They're making sure that there's no problem. You still have to do that. But then you try to avoid all the problems as much as possible. You have what we call close to real time, where they go, the intraday is the ID, and the day ahead, 2 day ahead, they'll take the latest forecasts of the solar production, wind production, of everything, of all the production on the grid, of the load, and they try to see where are their issues. If they detect some things, they can think to remediate this. Of course, it's still close to real time. Your options are a bit limited. The next part is what we call the short-term future. That's between week ahead and year ahead. It's where there's always work on the grid, so you also want to plan your work. So you're not just going to say, let's take off that cable and let's see, it will all be fine. You need to simulate the result of that. Is there not going to be an issue using, again, some simulated, some forecasted data? And then more for the long term, it's what we call grid development. It's more static, but there you see, okay, where do we need to reinforce the grid? Oh, they decided to kill the nuclear power plants. What do we need to do there? Oh, we have them back. What do we need to do now? Oh, they're gone again. So yeah, you see, it's a bit of work. So just to give you an idea, if you don't know, this is the ELIA NCC, the National Control Center. And actually, about 5 years ago, there was one engineer 24/7 on duty and one operator. By now, we have 3 full-time engineers all the time. One just for the real-time part, one for the close to real-time, what I explained, that's somebody different. And then you have the market engineer for all the market services that needs to. They have a lot of screens, they like screens. But they also have a lot of applications, because just to give you an idea now, I think ELIA has like 800 applications, not all relevant here, but there's many. They built a lot of them in-house, so that makes it interesting for parties like us. I'm in quite some of the projects. That's some you see on the big screens there, but yeah, so there's a lot of digitization going on there. So that's the part where we do grid simulations, but it becomes very important that we have the right data to do those simulations. The weather changes all the time, but as we have a lot more renewables, if it's a bit more sunny, this can have quite an impact. We had 11 gigawatts installed capacity, so it can fluctuate quite a bit. Same for the wind, which is even harder to predict. So the next part is really forecasting is quite important. And then there's another new trend, let's say, it's digital limit management. I'll come right to that. So forecasting, we need to do it more frequent, better, more accurate. We need to make sure the quality is right. So there's a lot of money being invested in doing that right. Weather forecasts, you can get it everywhere, so that's quite okay, but then translating it on your grid on actual power forecasts, which depending on the location, it's different in here in Leuven than in Ghent, where it's always sunny, by the way. Then yeah, you need to be able to do that. Even further, yeah, the cables are actually not on the ground. They're actually in the air, so you have models that predict, okay, here it might be 17 degrees, but actually in the air at 100 meters or 75 maybe, it's 15 degrees, has an impact. And why does that have an impact? Because the dynamic limit management, one example is dynamic line rating, that's, it's all thermal energy. So if it's colder, the better, your capacity increases, not only on the lines, also on your transformers, on other grid elements. And that's something they're really investing a lot of time, because yeah, instead of just saying, let's put another cable there, which is a big investment money-wise, especially for an ELIA. Remember Ventilus, just to try and put something there, it's not that easy. So just by using it smarter, you can gain a lot. If you know that it's being cooled by a lot of wind, for example, that's really relevant information that they take into account in their simulations to see, okay, we have a bit of more margin to do. So yeah, all this, make sure you can do some better grid simulations. I have a more detailed slides, but it goes quite in depth, but it gives you an idea of all the steps they need to do to make sure these grid simulations are ready. So again, you see those different time slices. I'll focus a bit on the top two, especially the close to real time is maybe the fun part. But you have your network, you have all your units. You need to know where is what unit, what type is it? Is it a solar panel or is it a wind turbine? There's quite some solar panels nowadays. It's different nuclear power plants, easy to put on the grid. Having that all visible and getting that data also from the DSOs, so from Fluvius and Sibelga, it's quite a challenge. Actually, I'm working on a project there where we have a go live in a week. So that should give a big improvement on getting the data quality right. That's really one of the challenges in all this. If you have all the data, doing the simulation's easy, but having the right quality, and there's so many people who have to say something about these units or do something, that makes it really hard. So you have your system. I explained here as well also the variants where nuclear off, on, or whatever. You take some of the, there will be 50% more solar panels, but let's say there's only 30% more because of something in the market. That's the variance they will play out here in the longer term. We then take our more grid information that we need for those simulations. In the real time, it's really getting your measurements. That's all live, let's say. But in the more close to real time and short term, it's the outages I mentioned and how your grid is connected, which elements are active or not active. That's of course relevant. And then we get our market information. We need to know of the bigger players, when are you really planning on providing power, on taking power, and your maintenances again. And then the forecasting part I mentioned. We have all those power forecasts above, which are derived of weather forecasts mainly, of the renewables at least, but you also have the smaller units that we don't know how much they will produce. Only above 25 megawatts you have to. Technically we will change to 1 megawatts, but they've delayed that a long time. So we need to forecast that, but okay, 20 megawatts can still have quite an impact. So they do all kind of power forecasting, where now we're also working on AI models to make sure that we can try and better forecast it. Before it's just, let's look at the last 3 days, extrapolate that, and okay, good enough. But as it's more decentralized, getting this better is really, really key and important. So that's one of the big focus areas there. And the result is really, this is then your real grid calculation. That's where you use your digital twin. You have those several scenarios I showed. You do in the real time, you do state estimation. Is for the points that you don't really have measurements. You estimate it based on the surroundings or on relevant other points. Load flow calculations is all in the close to real time, and the short-term future, where we're gonna just try different scenarios, see what it gives, and where we have risks and where we need to solve something. Goes in quite some detail, but I think it's a good idea on what they're all doing. That's why we have 3 full-time engineers working on that all the time. next to a whole bunch of people also working on it, of course. So the next step is, so we're adding this better, more accurate forecasting and making smarter use of that data. So we also, there's also some development in system services that can manage these problems that we now detected. These are the main system services. Some of them, Floris already mentioned, system balancing. These are more on an entire grid level and they're not local, but having forecasting also helps here. Why? For example, the system balance, Elia actually reserves a certain amount of capacity that they need to buy. So the more they reserve, the more they need to pay. We as a society need to pay. So Elia has been optimizing their AI model to make it smarter, taking in all the, again, also all the weather data has an impact on this, all the market dynamics to make that reserved allocation smarter. Always on the safe side, but it's really quite some money you can save there to do this smarter. On the emergency services, it's, you can use forecasting to be a bit smarter of it, but in Spain they failed a bit there. It's again more on grid level. What's more interesting is the congestion management and the voltage control, which are really on local management. That's where we'll use those load flow calculations to do system, to identify where we have problems. Congestion is really something you want to avoid at all time, because if you have an element failing, then you cause actually extra congestion around it, and that's one of the main goals. But same on the voltage level, we need to be able to simulate that. I'll speed up a bit in the interest of time. So another interesting part in this, let's say, wave is that now we've been talking locally in Belgium, but as you know, an electrical grid, it's connected. We're not just on our island of Belgium. So we're connected to the European markets, and that creates extra dynamic, because everything I told you, all good, but how do you look at it at the bigger picture? Well, I'm quickly going to guide you through how it happens. It's a bit simplified. There's a bit more going on to it, but actually everybody has this digital twin in a way. And so what we will do is we will provide frequently a copy of this digital twin to a central party, which is Coreso in this, here, and it's merged together in one big digital twin. They call it a common grid model, and they use that. Why do they need it? Because we want to know on each border, the connections on the border are limited in a way. So each country has some connections with other countries. We need to know how much will flow in which direction, because that again has an impact on your local grid simulations. If the UK will push energy to us, push electricity, but we expect it that they take electricity, that's quite an impact in our simulation. So that's why this happens on a European level, often to say, okay, this is then, this is the different, they will calculate, and these are the border lines there. This is what the capacity is on each borderline, and then they will release this to the different markets to be traded, that we know, okay, this is the capacity that we calculated, and this is what you're allowed to trade on it. But again, it's very important that we get that result and back to the local grids. It's just to give you some idea what's going on, but obviously we could go a bit longer on this. The last part is also something which is fully being, let's say, analyzed more. There's some proof of concepts. There's not really, at least at Elia, already in operations a thing, but it's a remedial action optimization. What's the idea there? So as you might know, is that if there's a problem, congestion, you can solve it in different ways. You can solve it, and we have costly, non-costly, all depends. Now it's people just based on experience, based on some guidance, go left, go right, do this, do that. But what you choose has a result on your flows and can cause maybe other problems or not. So you need to make a good decision. What is the idea now? That you have your physical grid, you have your digital twin again. This, you give it all to the crazy remedial action optimizer. But the idea is that it's they do thousands of calculations of thinking on the fly, and depending on how you set it up, automatically do take actions on your physical grid or inform the control room to take actions. Of course, the first years it will be mainly this flow. We won't be automating a lot because we don't trust computers and AI. But yeah, depending, the more this gets matured, the more automated it should get. It's just something that's a big win for them, just feeding the right information in the right way. And it's really all about speed here, about calculating all different scenarios, all the different things. So they're actually looking on doing it in GPUs, which you gain a lot of calculation power with it. Actually, in the Netherlands, they have a successful proof of concept there, where that really turned out to handle a lot more data and get faster results to the control room to do that. And then we ended our journey of the second digital wave, where we went from that manual local grid control to an interconnected grid, which we try and as much as possible automate the system operations of it. As I said, it's ongoing, and there's a lot of initiatives, and yeah, it takes time. That's maybe especially in bigger companies like grid operations, everything takes time, because if you change one thing, it has an impact on all the rest around it. Yeah, but I can say that as far as Elia goes, I think they're doing quite a good job, and they really invested a lot in their IT department, let's say, and they have a good strategy on trying to get this done as fast as possible, and hopefully prevent any problems in the future. Any questions on this? Must have been crystal clear. Ah, no. Brain. No, so the idea about real time, when we talk real time, it's 4 seconds actually. Well, that's when measurements, we receive measurements every 4 seconds. So the remedial action optimization is actually, it's a real time thing. Well, for now, that's where the biggest gain is, because you get a lot of information, need to take a decision that can impact a lot. Of course, it should go to the other timelines as well. But, of course, what it can do is, if we know something happened, that remedial action optimizer could also play a simulation of what happens tomorrow and 2 days if I take this decision. What happens if I take this decision? And it can do that all basically instantly. Well, not instantly, but while if a person would need to do that, it takes 1 hour, and by that time it's too late to actually take the decision. So that's where the big help is. They can do, AI, can do all that much faster. And of course, to program that and give the right information, that's, I think, the challenge there. So that's why we're not quite there yet. But that's the idea. The idea is to help it in the real-time environment. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't mean that your solution needs to be fixed in 4 seconds indeed, but yeah, the faster, the better. That's what I was mentioning. Actually, we had big problems. The business didn't like it because it was too slow. It was doing good things, but too slow. That's why Tenet went to the GPU as a solution, in which they really get a lot better results. Yeah, maybe going crazy and go quantum might help there as well. But I think, yeah, from a business point of view, yeah, you can come up with the crazy solvers, but if it's not fast, then they have a problem. But okay, that's, yeah, that's.
Maybe to complement, I think in reality, in practice, most remedial actions are taken a couple of hours in advance. So that's a bit what Tom is trying to explain. We want to look a bit into the future and try to get an idea, okay, what will be happening in a couple of hours? Do we detect congestion? Yes or no? And then we will intervene. So in an ideal world, in real time, you rarely have to intervene. And if I understood correctly, that's a bit the case today. So remedial action, you take a couple of hours up front, and then hopefully in real time, you're safe. So ideally, you have some time. You have some time to run it, but yeah, with operations getting closer and closer to real time extreme behavior, it would be nice if we can do everything a bit quicker.
Yeah, maybe an example on that is the famous Sahara dust. I don't know if you know it. Once in a while, there's a big wind and it makes all our cars and bikes dirty. That's dust from Sahara, and that's very, very hard to forecast. They have big issues on managing that, and it can have a big impact on the solar power generated. So then a couple of times it happens, then Elia is quite nervous. There's a lot going on there because their forecast models didn't forecast what's actually going on. So that's where this would help a lot, for example. I'm not Elia, just. You want to take it?
No. Yeah, I can't really comment on that. That's a bit far from what I'm doing, maybe also what Tom is doing. There's colleagues looking into it. There's people at Elia looking into how the grid restoration plan has to look, what it has to look like at some point. But to be honest, I really have little insights in. Sorry. If to my knowledge, it's very tricky because there's yearly like simulations where they test crazy scenarios, but it happens so rarely. You can't really test. There's not a lot of practical experience, and it's a very custom job every time, I think. So when it happens, there will be a lot of calling around, really from Elia to Engie to Luminous. Hey, can you start firing up your plant? Can you ramp step by step? we start powering up our different elements again. I don't think it's very easy to automate in the near future. Sorry?
Yeah, from my point of view, I think they focus. Of course, they have a bit of an incentive, or I know they've been shaken a bit by some events recently, but yeah, they are also focusing on getting those system services a lot more automated, better, so that you can do everything to prevent it. That's where you really need the automation, but here, yeah, a one-time event to do it, yeah, fully automated, it's not really possible, but yeah, to make sure you have everything at hand. They have all the phones with direct contacts to everybody, but that's in what they will do for now.
You should ask real Ilya employees.
We're just consultants. Good.
And I guess you have some openings, so if people are interested, that they can check your website.
Sure, always.
Okay, thanks everyone for doing that.
Thanks for organizing.
Yep. Feel free to contact us if you have questions or anything.
No, but that's good.
Yeah, it's hard to estimate.
Like, how do you work with Eddie actually? Is it like that they open some kind of polls and then you...
Yeah, but Adia is a bit special because I've been consulting there for 5 years now. It's 1 year contracts. They put in place, but yeah, a lot of the IT is externalized. So they have all the programmers, and then business analysis partly. I'm more IT project manager, and there they try to internalize, but as you see, there's so many initiatives. So then they look in the markets and they say, yeah, we have a 1 year contract, but in the end, it's so specific. So when you're there, they say, can you stay on another year? And so you have a lot of externals who are actually there for quite a while.
But then you work for Nodis Consulting
Yeah.
and they can...
Oh yeah, yes, indeed,
When they need a smart guy, they call me consulting and they say, hey, do you have
we're
someone?
actually with about 7 or 8 and the rest.
I guess the working conditions are better from Nodis Consulting than... Otherwise you would be there.
That depends a bit. So what Nodis has some extra assets. It's a small firm. We just came back from Marseille on the morning. Yeah. Yeah, you have that, and we focus a lot on knowledge sharing. So we have frequently, but like this, sessions where we share knowledge. But so it helps because somebody at Luminous then interacts with you, who's explaining something that you do. We also work together. We were working together on CNM back in the days when you were at Flipius. I was at Delia, and so you get a good dynamic and a more broader knowledge in that sense. So as a consultant, that helps. But yeah, of course, if you really want the engineering role at ADA, then you need to be at ADA itself, because there's always, as an external, some limitation. In the digitization, they really like the external support, so there's more opportunity. Hij belde dat het te laat was.
Hello, Panos. Good? What about you? Good. Yeah, we organized a workshop for students on digitalization for the energy transition. So we invited some experts.
Hij wist even niet wat dat... Ik weet dat het vertrokken is, maar hij wist niet wat dat naartoe ging. Is hij nodig gekomen? Ja, ja. Ik had het gevoel dat hij was zoekende was tot dat hij... Wat doe je? Als business analyst. Een goede loop.